woman who had an affair with Chris Watts told our partners at the Denver Post that she hardly knew anything about Shanann and that she had only recently started a relationship with Chris. Well, there's now evidence to suggest that she knew about Shanann almost a year before the murders.
Nicole later talked to police.
And then one day he told me that he had 2 kids. I was like, that's pretty cool. And started telling me about his kids.
That sounded like a sarcastic comment.
No, I thought it was kind of cute. I was like, oh, he's a dad. It was like right around Father's Day, too.
She learned he was married even though she says he didn't wear a wedding ring. The other woman claims she met Watts in June. She says she thought Watts was at the end of his divorce proceedings.
I didn't know his significant other's name for a while. And then I think he told me his kids' names pretty quick.
This one is Chris Watts. Chris Watts.
But police had found her internet searches from the year before. Kessinger searched the name Shanann Watts in September of 2017.
I didn't know his significant other's name for a while.
By this June, Watts was hiding photos in a phone app that looked like a calculator.
I mean, he just told me, he's like, we're house broke all the time. I was just like, that's unfortunate. And I asked him, I was like, do you have 401k? And he was like, yeah. And I mean, the reason I ask him this is because if I get into a relationship with somebody, I want to know, like, what kind of baggage that they have. I think that's important.
Am I in trouble because I related to sex?
You're not in trouble. Is it criminal? No.
Well, in Colorado, destruction of evidence is a felony.
Is there concern that you're hiding something? Potentially.
I'm worried.
Kessinger did cooperate with police. She says she went to them when she started suspecting that Watts was behind his family's disappearance. Yeah, guys, police interviewed Nicole Kessinger, the other woman. She came forward to police about the same time that Watts' employer, Anna Darko, had found emails indicating a relationship between the two.
You know, that is like, relatively speaking, matter of opinion, but we've talked about this before. And welcome, everybody. I'm so glad you guys are here. So thank you so much to everybody who's here. Please be respectful in chat this evening. I think we might be a little light on moderators because I told y'all I was doing a live stream tonight. And then something happened like it always does. And I was like, I'm just going to I have a big one tomorrow. It's going to be a little earlier than normal. It's going to be 8 p.m. Eastern, New York time. There's going to be a premiere, finally, of the part 2. Nicole Kessinger was so much more involved than you even knew you knew. It doesn't have an official title yet, or maybe it does. I'm just keep mixing up the words a little bit. And I know I've been working on it forever. Things keep coming up that have required me to either add or take content out. So it's going to be like a live stream tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern, New York time, followed by that premiere at 9. And I'm so glad you guys are here tonight. But anyway, short on moderators, because I wasn't going to do a live stream tonight, but I was like, I promised y'all I was going to. And, you know, I miss you guys. So here we are. So tonight, what we're going to talk about is something that I was, you know, as I was making these 2 kind of like lengthy involved videos, lengthy as far as the amount of research and fact checking that went in, because we're discussing things that have been hard to discuss before. And that's why it's taken me so long to get my butt moving on this. You know, because I can't say anything more about that right now, actually. Oh, and so some things that are really critical to understanding what went on with this investigation and the failure to prosecute and the failure to charge and the failure to properly, in my opinion, prosecute this crime. There are some key events, and many of them we have talked about throughout the years. Some of you were talking about them throughout the years before I was even around on YouTube. Some of them we've really focused on this channel. There are things we've kind of been digging at, but there's a few key things. And, you know, for the sake of not repetition, for those of you who have kept up with the case and have been with this channel for a long time, I couldn't put every single detail in, but some of the things that need to be understood as we are putting this whole story together. And I wanted to do it right because I don't just want to keep talking about Nicole Kessinger every other day of my freaking life for the rest of my life, because there are other important things going on. This is very important. This case is very important. Justice for these victims is very important. The things that went wrong, in my opinion, in this case are extremely important, and they need to be brought to attention. So hopefully we as a society choose to correct them within our own justice system, right? Really important stuff, but there's other important things. So I just want to do, a couple important content pieces, right? Important meaning towards sort of this movement that a lot of us feel like we're on, towards making sure that we finally, eventually get complete justice for Shanann, for Bella, for Celeste, and for unborn baby Nico. And then, I'm not sure what that, and I guess I'll find out from you what y'all think. Hi, Gregory. I'm so glad you're here. And Kevin, thank you. I'm so glad you're here too. It's great to see you guys. I was a little nervous about the mod situation. Thank you so much for everything you do. Jen, thank you for being here. Thank you, all of you. Oh, you guys are so great. And everybody who's saying hello. Oh my gosh, so many like wonderful, familiar faces. It's so great to see all of you. Let's see. Hi, Sherry. I sent you an email. I told you I would. Patty, how are you doing? Hi, Dawn. Hi, Swedish Mom. I'm just kind of like trying to get through to the bottom of chat here. The bottom for me is like current time. So if I'm missing you, it's definitely not personal. I'm so happy you're here. And it's just because my eyes don't work like they used to. Melly, Jay sent me here. Oh, we love Jay. Guilty of Crime. She was on, I think the last Watts live stream I did. She was up here with me. She was our featured guest. She's awesome. If you haven't checked out her channel yet, definitely do. Guilty of Crime. She's just amazing. She's just a great person, great energy, super smart. She's doing good things. Hey, Melly, how are you doing? Oh, I just read your comment. I don't know. Okay. Killer eyes. I'm ready to hear this. I know, right? Stop talking. Sometimes I know it annoys people when creators are, okay, specifically me. I'm really the only one who gets the feedback. It's about myself. Rambles in the beginning of live streams. Well, first of all, there's two types of content I do. Some creators only do one or the other. Some do both. Either uploaded, edited videos that take me a ton of time to make and to edit and to smooth out. And if you want a really much smoother presentation that's not going to veer off in many directions, maybe that's like a good thing for your, like the way you like to have things, right? So live streams on this channel are very much about you guys, about the community. I try to get to everybody and read your comments and hear what you have to say. So they're definitely more interactive. And if that annoys the crap out of you, I do not want to annoy you. So I would suggest go to check out, after you finally are like, I can't take her anymore, maybe an uploaded video that has been, scrutinized in the editing floor and still might have mistakes, but will just be a different flow. Hey, Fluffy Muppet, look at all of us junior detectives. My Uncle District Attorney Rourke must be proud right now, Fluffy Muppet. Oh, just kidding. We are definitely not related. Hi, Chick Tracy. Thank you for being here and for everything. Okay. Hey, Twinkie. Thank you so much for the super chat. I appreciate it. Twinkie says, this story will forever haunt me. Oh, absolutely. Hello from Washington, D.C. area. Oh, awesome. Very nice. I was just, last place I visited actually with my son was, my best friend lives in Maryland. Let's say she's about 30, 40 minutes from D.C. I don't want to dox my best friend. I don't know if I could, but hi, best friend. And my son and I went to DC and stayed with a family member there who, that went really badly, but we went to DC. We all have crazy family members. I'm sure my family members sometimes think I'm the crazy one. I'm cool with that. And Fan Lady became a member. Thank you so much. I appreciate you guys. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, so I'm just going to share with you a few different, Guilty of Crime is here. Hey girl, how are you doing? I have to figure out the Deception Detective forum. I was like, oh my gosh, I need a course on this. And that's another great channel that Guilty of Crime and I both love, Deception Detective. If you haven't checked out that channel yet, definitely get yourself over there. He has recently done content on, he is an attorney trained in statement analysis, as he says, and he's analyzed the Nicole Kessinger interview, the one from the 16th of August, the one where they're sitting down at the yellow table and daddy is there and, all kinds of weird stuff happens. And also the Chris Watts prison interview from February of 2019. Really, really interesting stuff. He has a lot to add to the conversation. If you're somebody who's been following this case for a while and you think you've heard it all, I would definitely recommend his channel. Yeah, for sure. Hey, Red Librarian, how are you doing? Guitar Building, how are you doing? Oh, right. I know. This time, those freaking time differences. Why can't we all be on the same time? It should always be midnight. Dawn H says it's a haunting story because it was not investigated properly. Yes, my girl. A confession should not stop an investigation, especially when there is so much evidence against, as we like to say in this channel, the skanky empanada. Or if you're Veronica, for you, I will say the skanky empanada. Although there is no tilde on the word empanada. Wouldn't know I was a Spanish minor. Because I got that wrong a lot before someone finally told me. And I was like, oh, I feel real stupid now. But hey, that is the beauty of live streaming. Yeah, and this is such an important point. And you know what? I was going to bring something different into the stream first. But you know what? Since you said that, I think this is a perfect segue. So exactly like Dawn just said, yes. But here's the thing. It wasn't that the plea deal stopped the clock. It was not that at all. I mean, really far from it. Let's see. Ooh. Wait just 1 minute. I am a terrible multitasker. I just want to be able to clock stop. Oh, that's us. Okay. Well, I can talk and do this. I can do it. I don't know if I can do it. So not only did the plea deal stop the clock, is Tammy Lee infamously said, and I would love to play you that quote, but sadly, the documentary Criminal Confessions will bang you with a copyright strike if you play like 3 seconds of it. So, she said, it was so incomplete. The plea deal stopped the clock. It was, we were happy that, he was going to be arrested and he was being charged with this crime and, he was going to be doing his time. But we had more people to interview. We had more evidence to look over. We had so much more to do. But the plea deal stopped the clock. Okay, let's be clear. The plea deal was accepted on November 6th. It was formally enacted in court on the 7th when he was charged and sentenced rightfully, in my opinion, by the judge. I just want to make it clear that I absolutely think Chris Watts is where he belongs. He is a rotten bastard, and that is true. There are just more elements to this case that have not been investigated, basically. But what really happened was, well, I'm going to play the video for you here. Now, this is where I need to pause, and everyone can just take a deep breath, meditate for a moment, because I don't want to repeat myself too much. Let's see. It's coming up. Too much Watts content on this channel. Eventually, I'm going to have to pare this stuff down. There we go. Okay. Now I can bring it into the stream. All right. Thank you for saying that, Dawn, and everyone just take a listen.
And welcome back to Watts, the Obsession. What are the biggest discrepancies, issues, and questions surrounding the Watts case? When it comes to the issues and questions, they come in a few forms. First of all, there are the literal discrepancies that we find within the documents that make up the 1,960-page discovery about the Watts case. There are issues of integrity in the investigation. Questions have come up like, why wasn't this person or that person questioned by the authorities? Or particularly in the case of Chris Watts' former mistress, why wasn't she pressed further for precise details when she was questioned by investigators? There are also questions about whether or not Chris Watts' confessed timeline is realistic or not. There are legitimate questions regarding whether or not the very details of Chris Watts' confession are possible, given the evidence that law enforcement has collected, at least the evidence that we have access to. There are questions about the evidence itself. Why was some evidence collected, but it wasn't analyzed? And perhaps and if that is news to any of you, I know some of you who have been with this channel for a while, you kind of know where I'm going with this, but it really is, it is becoming more and more critical as I've come to understand more about what really happened and why and how. Yes, evidence that was critical to, the central question of the investigation, which is who killed this beautiful family in such a horrific way. Evidence was collected. It was bagged, sealed, properly placed where it would need to be to have it properly analyzed by an FBI technician or a CBI technician, or whoever was going to analyze it, depending on, whatever the evidence was. And starting in the beginning of September, not November 6th or 7th when Chris Watts pled, but starting on September 4th, over 2 months before the plea deal, was that evidence outrightly and in writing officially refused by the Colorado Bureau of Investigations. Biggest question is, did Chris Watts commit this crime on his own, or is there unfinished justice in the name of the victims, Shanann, Bella Celeste, and unborn baby Nico? Was anyone else involved in this horrific crime? Let's start by identifying the big. I just have to say, I see your conversation about going to the sand dunes, and I would love to go sandboarding or whatever they do in sand dunes. That's actually the only reason why I've ever been to Colorado, not on the sand, but either to go skiing or snowboarding. Well, in the snow, as you might imagine. But I will only go, Kevin, if you're like, she's so damn sexy, as you record me going down one of those dunes. Every time I hear Chris Watts say that, I just literally want to throw up. There's something about, being part of for a moment, like the intimacy or whatever it was between them, that is just really repulsive to me. Do y'all feel the same way, or is that like a personal problem I have? Question. Was anyone else with Chris Watts, or did anyone else help him out with this crime? Let's listen to a small portion of Chris Watts' interview with Tammy Lee and FBI Special Agent Graham Coder before he was arrested. This is when they're trying to break him down and get the truth out of him. It's just before his father, Ronnie Watts, comes into the interrogation or interview room to speak with him. And let's hear what Graham Coder and Tammy Lee are saying about what they think happened that awful morning.
Like, there's nothing, just because I
Chris, people can be pushed to the point where they do something that they regret. It happens every single day.
I know.
But part of what makes you a man is the guy that goes, really fucked up, but this is what I did, and I'm going to pay for what I did, and I'm going to tell you what I did, and I'm going to be honest about it.
Chris, we can keep talking to you once we find these girls, okay? And once we find these girls and your wife, right? No matter how we find them, no matter what condition they're in, we can keep talking to you. You can tell us, guys, it's not as bad as it looks. And you can say, let me tell you what happened. I was never comfortable with you, Graham, or with you, Tam. I wasn't comfortable yet, but now that everything's known, now that the girls are found and Shanann's found, however they're found, it's okay. We can keep talking to you. Okay?
Chris, did Shanann do something to them?
No, I don't know.
I'm serious.
I have no clue.
No, you would have known, because they didn't leave the house. Did Shanann do something to them, and then did you feel like you had to do something to Shanann?
They were at the house when I left. They were there.
They weren't there. They didn't leave. They vanished.
Now, I want to highlight what she's about to say there, but I also want to say thank you to
Laura for becoming a member, and Pepper Boy, thank you so much for the super sticker. And I'm so glad you're here. You make good decisions. Yeah, thank you guys so much. I really appreciate the support. I wonder how she ended up at, oops, was it planned? Did she meet Chris before that? That wasn't the one I was planning on reading, but it's a great question. I just had a strategic comment picked out for where I know we're going. I see it, Alex Booyah. I'm glad you're here. Great to see you as always. Hey, Kayla from Louisiana. Nice. It's possible she met Chris at the gym while Shanann's parents were living with them for 17 months. I believe that is a possibility. I do, for sure. Oh, I know. That's too bad. That happens to me with channels too, when you just become unjoined and you don't know why. Yeah. Let's see. Sorry, I'm trying to find that comment. Hey, honey bun. You're the best. Thank you for being here. Hey, Life's a Beach. How are you doing? Oh, I know. I've always wondered why his back is turned to us. Okay, so I think I possibly have an answer to that question. I think it might have to do. I think it would be strange if it was just accidental or random. I think if you were to plan anything, it would likely be to have the suspect in this case, because we know that's what he is, facing the camera. So, you can see all those nonverbal cues and communications and indicators that he's putting off. For those of you who do not know, I'm a behavioral therapist. I live a lot in that world. But I think in this case, it has to do with Graham Coder's interrogating strategy, where he really is, he's like Chris's wingman. He's like, I've got the 6-pack. Let's hop in the truck. Let's go, boy. Where are we going to go? I don't know. To meet some skanky empanadas, of course. What else are we going to do with Chris Watts, right? But I think it has to do with his interrogating strategy or his relationship building technique with Chris Watts, where he doesn't ever put himself in a position, unless he's very intentionally meaning to, where he's in opposition to him, or he's even questioning what he's saying. And you'll notice at times when he does do those things, they're extremely, critical points that he's making. And I think that's why, because I had thought about that a lot too. I talked about this with a couple people, like in my profession or professions more relative to what we're looking at right here. I don't think we ever discussed on the channel, though. That's a really good question. I wonder what the deception detective would have to say about that.
The only
Remember to ask.
way they could have left is in your truck.
She says the only way they could have left is in your truck, which I'm sure I will reiterate in this video, so I should just let it play.
There's no way, because I didn't just throw them in my truck.
But you did.
You know your truck has GPS,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Because you told your boss,
Yeah.
hey, I'm going to celebration, I'm maybe staying
Yeah.
at a friend's house, whatever. You know that thing pings every 10 seconds?
Yep.
So we will know exactly where you went.
And your company's giving that to us.
So there, you heard Colorado Bureau of Investigation's Tammy Lee say it herself. She knows that Shanann, Bella, and Celeste left in Chris Watts' work truck. The investigators know that. There's really no other way they could have left unless they left through the back, which some people keep open as a possibility, and we really cannot rule it out since this case was not completely investigated. The question I have regarding the evidence that was presented in the discovery documents is, if Tammy Lee and the investigators knew or felt they knew that the family left in Chris Watts' work truck, then why did they handle the evidence that was taken from Chris Watts' work truck in the way that they ultimately did? Let me explain. In the discovery, there's a detailed description of how each vehicle was handled, both Shanann's Lexus and Chris Watts' work truck, the Ford.
Now, if you haven't heard me speak about this issue before, try to pay attention here, because this is some effed up shit. I mean, it really, truly is. But you got to take in all the information, the dates, what the evidence is, how it was handled. It's a little detail oriented.
F-250. So we're particularly interested in this part under scene investigation and vehicles. Says on Tuesday, August 21st, 2018 at 1600 hours, myself and FSK Henson arrived at a certain location to process and execute a search warrant for the 2 vehicles which possibly had been used to transport the deceased victims in the case. So going down to the 3rd paragraph, after a brief discussion, it was decided that CBI would photograph, collect, and package all evidence located. CBI would also use adhesive-based rollers and collect any possible hairs, fibers, and other trace evidence from the Ford truck in an attempt to determine any recent possible occupants of the vehicle.
I'm sorry, I just have to read this comment because if you don't know this, it's probably going to make you feel a little ill. Let's see. StreamYard. Do we need to slow down chat? It's moving fast for me, but doesn't mean it's for you. Thunder Chicken, hey, how are you doing? Says, I hope they were all retained after this and future detectives shown what not to do or say when handling evidence. I don't know if you meant the people that actually investigated this case, but as you may or may not know, they were far from, being retrained. They were given, pomp and circumstance awards. Entire walls gilded with precious metals and gems in a local police station and in the Colorado Bureau of Investigations headquarters to their excellent work in solving this case that 6 years later, I may point out, is not solved. Man.
What I find to be of particular interest is the notation that the adhesive rollers collecting evidence, also known, guys, as trace lifts, was for the purpose of detecting any possible passengers or people that were transported in that vehicle. So, given that Tammy Lee herself told us and told Chris Watts that one thing she knew was that Shanann, Bella, and Celeste were transported away from their house, 2825 Saratoga Trail, in his work truck, you would think that they would want to collect all evidence and analyze all possible evidence related to Chris Watts' work truck. Wouldn't you think?
So wait a minute. Let's get all on the same page about that, right? So the one thing that they knew, now remember, when Tammy Lee, Graham Coder, and Dave Baumhover went to interview Chris Watts in an unprecedented fashion, 3 months after he'd already been serving his several life sentences where he would just, live the rest of his life out, rotting away in jail and apparently not feeling guilty because he showed no signs of remorse or sense of responsibility yet. Sick bastard. When they went to interview him at that time, they were fully under the belief, except for Graham Coder, because he is one sharp ninja. And I think he may have thought a little differently than just about anyone else who was investing in this case. That's just my opinion. I think he and Michael Prill are really the kind of champions of this case as far as actually investigating and finding meaningful things that move toward justice. But anyway, they were under the belief that Shanann was deceased, that all 3 of them were definitively, I don't think there was a question in any of their minds, except for perhaps Graham Coder, that they were all just, taken as deceased bodies from Saratoga Trail. And I'm sorry, this is clearly a very difficult topic to discuss. I never know the right words. I don't mean to be extra upsetting or salacious by any means. I try to do the opposite, actually, but it's freaking horrible. And just taken to Survey so he could try to hide their remains, right? But as I find out, that according to Chris was not the case. Now, many of you know what I believe, and I believe it's somewhere in between, that Bella was the only one who was alive in her kind of normal form on that horrible truck ride. But we'll talk about that more tomorrow. But Anyhow, with us getting on the same page, can't we all agree that one thing that they should have done was to analyze the damn evidence that was collected in the work truck that could have told them if the family members were in fact in the work truck, since no one was allowed to be in that work truck except for basically the owner, maybe some of your compadres, like on the, on a site. I'm not even sure about that. I can't remember. I know we went over that a long time ago with all the geotab stuff, but I just really don't remember that detail, to be honest. It would have definitively told investigators, prosecutors, who was in that truck, and if they were deceased or living when they were in that truck. It would have also definitively told if there were any passengers in that truck on that horrible morning. So you'd think if there was one place they'd really want to scrutinize the evidence, it would have been from that work truck. It was like literally the key moving part.
The only way they could have left is in your truck. The only way they could have left is in your truck.
Nicole Kessinger turned out to have information that I can best describe as being a bombshell.
Liar.
Initially, you drew concern from me when you told me you deleted everything from
In my
Chris.
opinion, liar.
I've already told you that. You understand why. There's no question as to why that might cause concern. So,
okay, my friend. So there you heard Tammy Lee telling Chris Watts that she knows that Bella, Celeste, and his wife Shanann left their home in his work truck, and they were missing at the time. He hadn't confessed at all yet. And then we have DA Rourke describing the information Nicole Kessinger gave law enforcement as being bombshell information. And then we have CBI's agent Kevin Kobach talking to Miss Kessinger and saying, initially you drew concern for me when you deleted all of your text messages between yourself and Chris Watts, and there's no question as to why that is. So what have we established?
Yeah.
We have established that investigators know that Chris's missing family left the home in his work truck, that Miss Kessinger is a big part of this investigation, according to DA Rourke, bombshell information. And then we have the multiple interviews with Nicole Kessinger and Kevin Kobach, in which she repeatedly lies about why she deleted her messages, the text messages between herself and Chris Watts, and any information that relates to Chris Watts on her phone. Kobach comes straight out and tells her, you're shady. Considering investigators know that Miss Kessinger knows so much that she has such an intimate and close relationship with Chris Watts right up until the day his family went missing. And they also know that she has been dishonest, that she destroyed evidence in this case, this triple plus homicide case. And these investigators, they don't really know what part she may have played leading up to, during the murders, or in the attempted cover-up of the murders. They also know that Chris Watts' work truck played a pivotal part in this crime. Don't you think they would want to know exactly who was in that truck, and particularly if Miss Kessinger was in that truck with Chris Watts? And even if they were going to protect her, even if they didn't care if Kessinger was in that truck with Chris Watts, don't you think that they would want to corroborate his confession and prove scientifically with scientific evidence that his confession was true, that the body of his deceased wife and his alive children were in the back of his work truck on that drive from Saratoga Trail to Survey 319? Wouldn't you think they would want to know that if they had the evidence right at their fingertips? There are many shortcomings from an investigative standpoint in this case that I and many others find shocking, but this one I always find to be among the most stunning of them all. Let me read you part of. If you're like, where is she going with this?
I promise you, pay close attention here. This supplement from the Discovery. It should be noted that on September 4th, 2018, while running through the evidence submission list with lab tech Patricia Lopez, several items were listed that CBI Lab ultimately did not wish to take possession of at that time. Those items are crossed out on the evidence submission form, which has been added to the case file. The refused items are as follows. I'm going to read the last three items. Driver's side seat cover from work truck. Trace lift from center console of Chris Watts' work truck. And trace lift from back seat driver's side of Chris Watts' work truck. The items that were not taken by CBI are transported back to the Frederick Police Department and checked into evidence. Nothing further. So, my friends, what that means is the trace lifts that were taken from Chris Watts' work truck for the purpose of determining if any other occupants were in that truck, that evidence was actually collected. But CBI, Colorado Bureau of Investigation, chose to not send that evidence to their labs to analyze the evidence to determine what DNA could be found, what hair could be found, what other evidence, trace evidence could be found that would decisively identify what, if any, occupants were in Chris Watts' work truck, and they could also determine if those occupants were alive or deceased. Now, when I've brought this issue up before, people might refute it by saying, oh, well, maybe, well, hey, right there, it says they didn't wish to take it into evidence at that time, so maybe they analyze this evidence another time. But guys, we know that's not the case because District Attorney Rourke went with the story that Laura, we will be talking about that, and there is a definitive answer in just a few minutes. Shanann, Bella, and Celeste were all murdered in their home at 2825 Saratoga Trail until Tammy Lee, Dave Baumhover, and Graham Coder went to interview Chris Watts in prison after he was already serving his 5 consecutive life sentences on February 18th, 2018, over 3 months after his sentencing. At that time, Chris Watts then gave them a more complete confession, informing them of what apparently really happened, that Shanann's life was taken at the home, and that sweet little Bella and Celeste made that car ride from Saratoga Trail to Survey 319, 45 minutes, alive, with their mother's body on the floorboard beneath their feet. And it wasn't until they arrived at Survey 319 did they take their last breaths. People who were involved in law enforcement, and unanimously, they believe that this trace lift and DNA evidence would have determined if Shanann, Bella, and Celeste were in fact in that truck, if Nicole Kessinger or any other party was in fact in that truck, and if those occupants were in fact alive or deceased. So the question remains. Now, I've told you guys a story before about how my dad unfortunately passed away in December. He was still practicing law at the time of his death. It's super sad. I'm going to start crying, so I'm just going to brush past that, but I don't ever really brush past it, but just for the sake of moving forward. And he was a brilliant attorney. He was a district attorney, where he lived for years, probably too long. I think and no offense, Dad, but I think there needs to be fresh faces in that office just for the sake of justice, right? But I remember talking about this with my dad and another very close friend of ours when I finally got him to talk about this damn case, because he was just, I won't tell you the whole story. Some of you've already heard it, and there was this time when we were, kind of having a really good sort of, intense discussion about it. And the fact that this evidence was collected, but it was blatantly refused for analysis by any investigator 2 months before the plea deal happened. Let me emphasize that again. September 4th, 2018. Okay, like 3 weeks after the tragedy happened, over 2 months before the plea deal was arrived at, right? 2 months. So that fact, combined with the fact that District Attorney Rourke accepted the plea deal with no conditions attached. And this is going to be a huge part of what tomorrow's content is about. And I'm really excited to just see how you guys react to it, because I think it's going to create some more fruitful discussions, and hopefully, gain some passion from some people who are like, oh, I'm not sure. So they will know that we all have to be together in demanding justice for these victims. But those two things put together, he was just assuming that District Attorney Rourke was either forced to or electively stepped down from his position as district attorney to save some face. But I knew that wasn't the case. So we realized we were kind of started arguing. We realized we weren't connecting on some point. And we finally realized, he's like, oh my God, that man was still in office? And I was like, yeah, and he still is today. Ain't that something? And he, and also his good friend who was an attorney who was with him, seriously couldn't freaking believe it. They're not in New York State, never. And I mean, I'm not an attorney, but I tend to agree with that from what I do know about law in New York State. But it really is shocking. It is not normal. It cannot be normalized if we want a functioning justice system. And it's just, all around fucked up. Excuse my not French.
Why did CBI choose to not analyze this critical evidence that had already been collected?
Okay, yeah, that's the end of this video. I made a couple different videos about it. So, evidence was collected from Chris Watts' work truck. If you missed exactly what those items were, they were, let's just go with there were some very few things, nothing to do with the passenger aspect of the work truck that was actually analyzed, but it says, here was the refused items. I'll read the whole statement. Again, on September 4th, 2018, 2 months and 2 days before the plea deal was struck, 2 months and 3 days before the judge sentenced Chris Watts the way he did, it says, it should be noted that on September 4th, 2018, while running through the evidence submission list with lab technician Patricia Lopez, several items were listed that CBI, Colorado Bureau of Investigations, ultimately did not wish to take into possession of at that time. Those items are crossed off of the evidence submission form, which has been added to the case file. The refused items are as follows. And I don't understand some of the other ones, but since this is just about Chris Watts' work truck, we have driver's side seat cover from Chris Watts' work truck, trace lifts from the center console, who would have told them if there was DNA from other persons in that truck as passengers. Trace lifts from the back seat, who would have told investigators who was in the back passenger cab area of his truck, which apparently is his wife and his unborn baby and his 2 little girls. They would have known that definitively and not had to go back and beg him for information after he'd already been sentenced with a 4.5-hour interview that really rolled off very strangely to the public. And I don't know if anyway, I'm not gonna go off about that. It would have told them if his family members were in that truck and if they were alive or deceased, and also trace lifts from the back seat, the driver's side of the back seat. So we have the driver's side seat cover, trace lifts from the center console, and trace lifts from the driver's side back seat. The items that were not taken by CBI were transported back to the Frederick Police Department and checked by into evidence. That doesn't even make sense what they said there. So that means that it's back in, District Attorney Rourke's candy land of, reigning over the Frederick Police Department. And I'm sure he just, I don't know, picked up that evidence, spit his gum into it, and threw it into, something that would do away with the evidence. I don't know if that really happened. I shouldn't say that. I'm joking, world. I'm joking. But I am a little angry at the way this wasn't prosecuted. Yeah. But sometimes I'm not joking, but we can't always say that. So just to look at the inside of the work truck here, center console, which is right here, which is going to, oh my gosh, the driver's side seat cover, and then trace lifts from the back seat as well. Collected, and no, we don't really need to analyze that evidence. It's not important. No, we don't really care what happened. I mean, that's obviously not the case. So you have to ask, why was this evidence so grossly mishandled?
You want a brother or a sister?
Oh,
I can't tell you.
We must remember how serious this crime and remember the victims. Rest in peace, sweet angels. Shanann, Bella, Celeste, and baby Nico.
Bella wants another sister or brother. What do you want? Do you want another brother or sister?
Sister.
You want another sister?
Baby.
Baby? Say hi.
Hi.
Hi. You want a brother or a sister?
Sister.
You want a little sister?
Yeah.
You want to be a big sister?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kisses.
Can you blow them kisses? Blow them kisses.
No.
No. Can they see your costume-like outfit? Show it. It's Supergirl, right? Supergirl. For a kiss. Oh, good job, Bella. Yes, good job. All right, say goodbye, everybody. Wait. Bella, say goodbye. Say bye. Say bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. She doesn't stop. Bye, guys. I'll see you guys later.
Horrible. So, I mean, there's truth. There's just really not words. It's just the most like horrible thing. Horrible. Just horrible. Thank you. Am I going to say your name right? I hope I do. Is it? Oh, I'm really nervous about pronouncing your name right. But is it? Is it Buck? I don't know. There's a lot of K's in there. Missing dentures. I got that part. Thank you for the super chat. And no, it's not normal. It's not normal, and it cannot be acceptable. It cannot be. It's not acceptable. And the fact that they got awards. Oh, Chris had no idea he wasn't going to have time to clean up the evidence, like the purse and the phone. Her friend was key. Absolutely. As far as I'm concerned, Nicole Atkinson is a hero. Hey, Trailer Trash Barbie. I meant to say hi to you earlier. Nice to see you. Mike Applegate. Part of something that I do is administer to use part of, sometimes whole or sometimes partial various IQ tests, depending on which it is. So, I've talked about this before. Not like, I can look at somebody and tell their IQ. I'm not that self-righteous by any means, but you kind of get an idea of, a way like a person speaks, a number of things that kind of start to give you indicators when you actually know that information about certain people that a lot of people won't know about one another, right? So he tells the investigators that his IQ is, he say 140. So that's, basically on the genius threshold. There ain't no way freaking Bucky Brown there has 140 IQ. I will tell you that right now. and 100 might be maybe, yeah, closer to that than 140. That's for sure. Yes, Mike. Yes. Thank you for saying that. um, hmm. Veronica, it's so hard sometimes when you and Stevie are both in chat. I did say skanky empanada earlier, but I can't now because Stevie's here and Stevie's already upset with me about being a Spanish minor. But hi. There was a video of someone who literally took people like the ones in the trunk at the time and didn't fit the pregnant mom at all. The exact same truck, not even the skinny, smaller woman fit there. Well, I've seen that stuff too. Like what I kind of think about that is, and let me know what you guys think. It's sort of like anecdotal. Like I think if you really need something to happen, you're going to make it happen. And also, were those people working with the exact dimensions of Chris Watts' work truck? What do you have to say about that, Kevin? Yeah, I think that's possible. I mean, I don't. Yeah. Yeah. Ted Kaczynski's IQ was high, and I don't know what it. Yeah, obviously. Yeah, well, not obviously, actually, but yeah. I mean, generally, if you're considering Chris Watts to be a psychopath, generally speaking, like as a demographic, their IQs are slightly higher than average, which would be yes, right ranging around 100. Unfortunately, getting lower as the years go by in our society, but some of them have slightly higher, moving towards genius or extremely intelligent person IQs. But I think it's a false belief for some people that psychopathic people have always tend to have an unusually high IQ. Not the case. Possible, yes. Not the case. Let's see. Yeah, sorry. I'm reading some, talking about, and thank you for those of you who said, thank you for keeping this case alive. It's been increasingly difficult to talk about this case for a number of reasons. So I have to be a little discriminating in what I actually say out loud. Let's see. So I wasn't sure what you were talking about. Dawn says, Zawoki has a lot of information about that too. What were you guys speaking about? He plays other YouTubers' videos in case he's great and gives credit to other YouTubers. I think he's gotten very good about that, giving credit to other YouTubers. It's a process. He definitely evolved. And I think he is starting to really get behind the case. I just have to say, the one thing I don't like that he does, and I've talked to other creators who put out content on this case, and I'm not going to stick on it, but if ears are out there, you might want to just like pass along a friendly suggestion. When somebody drops a video and you pick it up that day or the next day or even 48 hours later and then play it, reacting to it, that is in really poor taste. And there's a lot of like people in the true crime community who are upset about that kind of thing. But sometimes people just don't know. I'm not trying to be critical. I'm trying to be helpful. Let's see. Yes, I agree with that, Dawn. The more, Loco Jazz Hands, I apologize to you in the email because I did not start early. The more podcasts and YouTubers on this case, the better they will actually solve this case. I 100% agree with you. Absolutely. Yes. I am a lover, not a hater of other channels that cover this case. Well, I'm a lover of other channels and supporter in general. But hey, Crystal, how are you doing? All right. Yeah, we're going to be talking about Rourke a lot more, especially tomorrow. He does absolutely give credit. Yes, he does. And that's much appreciated by all. Yes, he does. Okay. All right. All right. So I'm going to now just, we're going to just take a look at the case discovery, because Laura, I think earlier had mentioned, well, what's up with it? Did the dogs go into his work truck? Do y'all think you know the answer to that question? I should have made that a community poll. I'm about to give the answer away. If a few of you at least could type something in chat right now about what you think you know about the dogs, the search dogs in Chris Watts' work truck, that would be awesome. Oops. All right. Let's see. I actually never made, you know what? Maybe we'll let Michelle After Dark talk. I just found this video that she had made like 3 years ago. I never made a video. I've just mentioned it occasionally about the search dogs and the work truck, but this is a solid video. She also talks about the things that we just went over. But yeah, so this is Michelle After Dark. She's actually posted as one of my recommended channels on my channel. She has been for a really long time, and I'll definitely post in the description. She's a great channel if you guys aren't familiar with her. She covers a number of cases, and we love her. So I'm just going to give my voice a rest for a moment and give her the, give her the mic. Okay, there you are, StreamYard. All right. Welcome to everybody who's coming in. I'm so glad you guys are here. Thank you for being here. And remember, there's going to be another live stream tomorrow. Okay, I said 8. Like realistically, we know it's going to be 8:30. It'll probably only be like an hour, because right after that, it's going to roll right into the premiere of the part 2. Nicole Kessinger's more involved than you ever could have freaking imagined, bitches and non-bitches. I don't want to offend anyone. You know, I'm just calling you bitches lovingly. Is this her video? I think it is. Let's see. No. Oh, nope, it's not. Sorry, I have a little bit of a weird tabs and windows situation going on. Thank you for your patience. Present. Oh, StreamYard. I love you too, bitch. Don't be jealous. Stop being like that. Stop being jealous, StreamYard. You know I couldn't live without you, unfortunately. Let's see, is this the one? Yeah, I think it is. Okay. All right, so I'm just going to go back again. Again, this is Michelle After Dark. If you aren't familiar with her channel, you should be, because she's awesome. So I'm just going to, it's only a couple minutes into it, so I'm just going to go back. Let's see what she has to say. Oh, buffering. Hold it, guys. I want you to be able to like see this up close. I just got to grab this link and pop it into my other set of, I don't know. I have kind of a, I've been really deep into this, like these couple NK videos. I got just a lot of research and stuff open on my computer right now and final fact checking. And I got a little sloppy with it, truth be told. Right here. I have another window. So you have a better presentation. My computer is like, bitch, you're the bit. Look at all this work I'm doing. I think it's a little mad at me right now. Thank you for your patience. All right. Stop screen, start screen, present screen, share screen, choose screen, share screen. This is literally what I'm clicking through right now. This is why I love StreamYard so much. Share screen, window, Chrome tab, entire screen. Share screen, select, share, hopefully it gets to you, maximize, press play, check the volume, go back to StreamYard, make sure it's coming through. Have a good night, Daisy.
Dispatch, Frederick 988. You're Queen Frank Tom 682.
Yeah, my girl, especially you, Angel D.
Is this the truck you always drive? Yeah, you can go in the house, yeah. I don't know, there's no computer in it, so I don't know how the GPS, if it's computer.
Mike, that's funny.
Hello and welcome to another video on the Watts Family Murders. It's Michelle here. I hope you're doing well. So today we're going to be looking at some crime scene analysis. Specifically, we're going to be looking at what was analysed in Chris's grey work truck. We know quite a lot about this truck, right? It's property of Anadarko. Chris Watts worked for Anadarko Petroleum, and as part of his job, he got a truck that he could use for work purposes only. So he couldn't take his family around in them. So really only Chris and his work colleagues, possibly if he gave one of those a lift to a scene, would have ever been in that truck. So potentially a lot of crime scene evidence in that truck. Specifically, as it was suspected, because Chris told them so, he transported the bodies of his wife, Shanann, and daughters, Bella and Cece, from home at 2825 Saratoga Trail to Survey 319, the family's final resting place. At the time that this analysis took place, Chris had only confessed to killing Shanann. He'd not confessed to killing Bella and Cece. Chris said that Shanann had killed Bella and Cece. That's why he killed her. So we also see on the afternoon of the 13th, we see via Officer Coonrod's body cam, Chris being really nervous, behaving very strangely, when next door neighbour Nate showed Officer Coonrod the security camera footage from the front of his home, and we saw Chris backing his truck into the driveway at about 5:18 a.m. as per the GPS on Chris's truck, and then loading things in. Nate said this was very unusual that Chris would do this, loading things in backwards and forwards for approximately half an hour, and then at 5:46 he drove away. So you would think that the truck would be an important piece of crime scene evidence.
Yeah.
Well, let's see what was done. Now, there is some kind of misconceptions about what was found in this truck. People said, well, they've not found any.
Sorry, pause and grunt, pause and grunt. This is not my original video. So we learned when I got a live stream taken down the other week, embarrassingly. It's the first time it's ever happened. Pause and grunt. Pause and grunt. Pause more, grunt. Louder. Pause, grunt. Pause, grunt.
Any hair, they didn't find any body fluids, they didn't find anything in the truck to suspect that Chris even transported Shanann and the girls. I mean, we've since learned that the girls were alive, and we see possibly a shadow of a child on that footage of Nate's when you blow it up and you really look closely at it. So people say, well, because there was no evidence in the truck, then he can't have transported them in the truck, which is a logical thing to assume. Also, people say the search dogs didn't alert at the truck. Well, actually, one dog did alert, Jane's dog, Cody, the Labrador, the search and rescue dog. He alerted at the truck. It wasn't a hard alert, according to...
Oh, the search and rescue dog. Now, something I talked about in the video I did kind of recently about what happened in the basement. It was probably one of the saddest videos I felt. I don't know. It was saddest for me. Because it's the way the information can now be put together, and it hasn't been easy. District attorney work. I will say you provide a good challenge to your, average, public citizen by doing such an incomplete investigation and prosecution that, we really have to say, well, riddle me this and that a million times over before we can put those pieces together. But it just painted a very sad and detailed picture. That's why. But the two dogs, that did go in the basement, for example, their two dogs are trained differently. I did a short video on this a while ago. I was a while ago. If anyone finds it, send it to me. I can't even find it in my own collection I was looking for earlier. Jane's dog is primarily trained as a search and rescue dog. He's looking for, different things in a different environment, but his strongest training was on, the smell of distress and stress and being in trouble. The dog that went in with off their track after that was primarily trained as a cadaver dog to smell, obviously, the scent of decaying human remains. So of course they behave differently, right? Yeah, makes sense. I just don't know why. I don't know.
Handler Jane, but he did show interest in the truck, but he only sniffed the outside. He wasn't allowed inside. The reason...
Oh, wait. For those of you who don't know the answer, oh my God, guess this one. Can you figure this one out? Why did the dog who was the I smell signs of distress dog, who didn't give a hard hit, but indicated outside of Chris Watts' work truck definitively, why did that dog not actually go into the work truck? Is it because these are special work truck doors and they lock from the inside out only, and Chris Watts was sitting inside the truck going, no, boo, boo, you can't come in? Or was it because there was one of those Colorado hailstorms that was hailing down so fiercely the pressure of the hail would not allow you to open a truck door? Or was it because law enforcement was either too dumb, too lazy, or too corrupt to bother to take 12 minutes out of their day to get a simple search warrant from a judge that would be turned immediately back around? You could be back at that house in 25 minutes, letting the dog in the truck. For all of you that guessed A and B, you should probably go find another channel. The answer is C. I'm just kidding, though. I still love you. You just got to stick around a little more. We'll teach you the ropes. It's good. We're glad you're here.
Why the search dogs weren't allowed inside the truck is because it's not Chris's property. It's property of Anadarko. So they would have needed a search warrant to go inside the truck. Why didn't they just get a search warrant is the question.
Well, because the truck is Anadarko property. So the search warrant had to be served to Anadarko, who obviously would have been like, yeah, man, search the truck. We don't want to, they didn't want to be any kind of shady with this one. I mean, it literally would have taken less than half an hour. It's insane. I mean, it's truly insane, or it's the most remarkably stupid thing I've ever heard. And I just don't think that is the case. I'm not willing to believe that people that are that stupid and in that kind of volume and density, pun intended, are those who are enforcing the law in our society and also prosecuting people who break the law in a horrific, unimaginable, unhuman kind of way. I refuse to believe that. So I have to believe that they did not get that search warrant from Anadarko that would have taken less than an hour because they're just all stupid.
But anyway, and also the police weren't allowed to search inside the truck. They took some photographs on the afternoon of the 13th of August, but they weren't allowed inside that truck. Again, they needed a search warrant. Why?
Because photographs pick up that DNA analysis that they needed to find out what really happened in that fucking truck, which was the only thing that Tammy Lee knew that those victims left the house in. This is absurd.
Didn't they get one? Because I guess on the 13th and possibly also the 14th, all those suspicions were growing about Chris. It was a missing persons inquiry. So one would assume that they went missing while Chris was at work. So they didn't yet get a search warrant. Anyway, let's look at this crime scene report and see whether we can debunk any of the misconceptions about this case in relation to Chris's truck. So this is crime scene analyst David Yoakum's report. And it's a long report because it's a full crime scene analysis. Now, this is, it's about Anadoko, about the house. We only want the vehicle information. So let's pop down part way through this report. Here we go. So scene investigation, vehicles. So there's 2 vehicles that they searched. Chris's work truck, which is the focus of this video, and then Shanann's Lexus 350.
Pause, grunt, 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 pause. Pause, grunt.
We're not going to worry about that because nothing happened in the Lexus. No one was there in Lexus. The Lexus was in the garage the whole time until it was picked up by the recovery people and taken into storage. So on Tuesday, August 21st, 2018 at 10.
Let's see. I think this is going to be
an attempt to
video that I made that we
and 50
information.
Along with several other vehicles. The truck had been exposed to rain showers earlier in the week. It had rained on the 14th. I know it had rained on the 14th. We see that on some officers' body cams. I don't know whether it rained later in the week as well. Really, we're interested in the internal of the truck, so I'm not too fussed that it was outside. The truck was in good condition with no...
But if Michelle did want to find out the official historical weather at Survey 319 and surrounding areas on the 13th and 14th, she could watch one of 2 videos that I made about it that has the most accurate historical information on weather and climate on those dates that you're going to find.
Obvious signs of damage. The doors were locked and the window glass was not broken. The truck was an alternative fuel truck powered by compressed natural gas. Interesting. The doors to the truck had been secured with evidence tape. Upon inspection, the tape and seals were intact and not broken. And we do actually see the Lexus being sealed, the doors of the Lexus being sealed on officer's body cam. We don't see them on the truck, but we do see it on the Lexus. Scene processing. In the bed of the truck were affixed toolboxes and fuel tanks, hose implements, as well as miscellaneous hand tools, which included a round point shovel, a square point shovel, and a sickle, were identified and collected. These were part of his work tools because sometimes they had to dig to fix pipe.
Yes, Aunt Diane, is the video that I'm going to be putting out tomorrow is going to show us very clearly, and I know y'all know this to some degree, but we're going to hit on some different angles. There was a lot that Rourke was fearful of. He's just a cowardly little bastard. He's like one of the 3 little piggies. Yeah, he's afraid the big bad wolf's going to come, whatever the big bad wolf does. Allegedly, that's my opinion about District Attorney Rourke.
Pin and stuff like that. Chris was an operator. He was out in the field doing repairs and stuff. So these are part of his work tool box, I guess.
Okay, so this is one of the riddle me this questions that District Attorney Rourke wants to leave us with. WV Ridge Rider, welcome. How are you doing? So they get a warrant to confiscate his work truck? No. Well, they didn't get it to search it, but they would have had to confiscate it. Let me think that through. I don't. Yeah, well, so are you here, Anaphylaxis? Quick answer how that would work. So after they'd have to have warrants for everything they confiscated or took, right? So that's a really good point. They ultimately had to get a search. They had to get some kind of a warrant anyway. If they had obtained the search warrant at the appropriate time, that would have been done. And they could have, at least given off the illusion of conducting an appropriate investigation for this horrible, horrible crime. But they didn't. So what? No, they just didn't do it. Not a big deal. No one cares. Not family members, no one. Seriously. Stupid and lazy. Well, yes. And maybe more. He is. I'd be careful about the work descriptors I use. That's right. Search warrant or consent. How many different cases have we talked about that? Yes. Search warrant or consent. But the fact that it was Anadarko's truck, well, yeah, same thing, but it would have been from Anadarko. Sometimes I think faster than other times. Sometimes my brain works slow. Does anyone relate to that? Or do you have 145 million IQ like Chris Watts? Well, Veronica, I know you kind of came and we were talking about this, but it's not even that Chris Watts, but yes, really important point you're making here. But say Chris Watts confesses and 0.1 seconds later, case closed, nothing to see here. Really, they closed the case 2 months before that and said nothing to see here. It's truly remarkable and unacceptable. And we must hold this information that we now know as being unacceptable and hold the people who wanted to spoon feed us this chunky pineapple banana, but a little bit moldy Gerber baby food and expect us to go, oh, that's delicious. We need to hold them accountable for serving moldy baby food. That could be a huge health epidemic. Like, seriously, think about it. We need to hear from Michelle right now.
Also, within the bed of the truck was a partially full gas can and a fire extinguisher. We do see him putting a red gas can, into the truck on Nate's footage. In the Wisconsin confession on February 2019, Tammy Lee actually brings up the fact that he put the gas can in, and they had a conversation about whether he was actually going to end his own life. All right, so located in the front passenger compartment of the truck, a roll of black plastic bags was observed and collected from the front passenger side door and collected from the front passenger side floorboard. Again, at the Wisconsin confession, they asked him about the trash bags, and he said that he used 2 trash bags, one over Shanann's head and one over her feet, so the girls couldn't see her. The sheet that he wrapped her in didn't fully cover her, so he got some trash bags out of the basement and he just kind of threw them in his truck. The front driver's seat and front passenger seat were covered with canvas seat covers. From the steering wheel, a possible DNA swab was collected, but it does appear that that's the only place they collected DNA swabs from, strangely. So I guess they're establishing that Chris drove that truck and no one else. But why not collect DNA swabs from the seats, the floor? In the rear seat were 2 large plastic bins that contain miscellaneous work materials, safety equipment, personal items, maps, paperwork. A pair of black rubber boots were located on the floor behind the front passenger seat. Beneath the rear seat were additional miscellaneous tools. So again, all part of Chris's job. Adhesive lifts were collected from the rear seating area and floor. Okay.
And those are the ones that they refuse to analyze. And that is just such a shame. I just can't. Aunt Diane says, oh, Kathleen, thank you so much for the super sticker. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Thank you for being here too. And hello. Aunt Diane says, Chris Watts must have been threatened not to fight the charges, not saying he's totally innocent, but other people should be in prison too. Well, yes, I think he's totally guilty and other people should be in prison. It's okay. People have different opinions than me, but I just can't say that enough because I'm held accountable for an opinion I don't have all too often and am being so right now in kind of a weird way. So Chris Watts is guilty and belongs in prison. I've never for a moment thought anything different or said anything different. And there's about 700 videos. You can fact check me on that point. But, in my opinion, like I've, always, looked at him from a behavioral therapy standpoint and among other things, I truly think that the way he caved on these charges was a little bit of pressure and a very weak constitution, a very poorly developed personality, a little bit of pathology, whether it be socio or psycho. I honestly lean towards socio, not psycho, but I don't know, nor would I ever dare to say that I could or should diagnose him. Allegedly. I hate when people do that, but I feel like I need to right now. But I just think, listen, based on what we know of Chris Watts' life history, have you heard anyone give examples of him, being someone, who is willing to, persevere in sacrifice if even a little discomfort was going to come his way, or God forbid, come into a state of conflict with anything or anyone, even if great things such as love, family, justice, life, survival are at stake? No, he doesn't, because he's a pussy whip bitch. Like, that's just what Chris Watts' deal is. So in my opinion, and this is a good discussion because nobody truly knows, but we could have come a whole heck of a lot closer to knowing if this case was properly investigated, allowed to be investigated, and prosecuted. But that didn't happen. So we're left with this, what some categorize as being irresponsible speculation. But the fact of the matter is, the human brains who have taken in the information about this story, this is such a traumatizing story that people relate to in such like a close way. It literally has the impact on most people who hear about this story, and some like it, but there really are very few. And there's pie charts that support everything I'm saying, and I've showed some of that information before. If you wanted to go into a scientific look in all this, let me know and we can do that. But it has the same effect on your brain as experiencing a real life trauma, because it is so extreme and there's something about it that is so horrific and unimaginable. And the way you just love and adore those victims because they're so innocent and so sweet, and children, a pregnant woman, is so unacceptable to the human psyche that we as like a humanity aren't going to rest until we have answers to this one. So listen, district attorney, whoever you are, you picked the wrong case to be a fucking selfish, lazy bastard, because humanity is not going to let this one go. I mean, I know you do not like to have an opponent in your run for district attorney or whatever your position is. So I was just really surprised that you were willing to step up against all of humanity. That is, wow. I mean, wow. You've come far. Somebody give that man a Hallmark card. Let's see. I think I need some chat. Like, who else should be in prison? Well, I mean, my answer is going to be there is at least one other person who has admitted to committing crimes, at least one of which, possibly two, depending on all the details that we don't know because of all the reasons I've already stated, is a felony in Colorado because it is a serious offense. In that person's own words, her own words, she has admitted to that. In the prosecuting attorney's own words, he has said that she hampered the investigation. She deleted information off of her phone, anything between herself and, Chris Watts, that, what does he say? It's something to the fact that it posed challenges, and they basically couldn't get he was saying, but they did get an accurate communication record between the two of them. And it hampered the investigation. Hampered, obstructed, screwed up, threw off, obstructed, all meaning relatively the same thing. And that she was forthcoming for the most part across almost 8 hours of interview tapes or transcripts in the case that you don't have the audio like the phone interviews, but that's how much time there was. So to be honest, for the most part, when you're flapping your gums for that long and you talk as much as this chick, is really, I mean, that's like, it's not a compliment. It's not like a testament to like, honesty and integrity. Like, she was probably not a Girl Scout. I'm just thinking maybe she was not. I don't know. It is fun that people from all over the world join us and talk about this. I think that's awesome. You guys are seriously great. As are you, kind Colorado. Yeah. Hi, Thomas McCarthy. How are you doing? Oh, I got a bunny freaking out here. You're going to hear some background noise, and that's just part of my imperfection, and I apologize for it, but you're going to be okay. Yeah, seriously, like that's exactly how I feel. The DA is one of my least favorite people ever these days. That's really well said. Yeah, that's kind of something I think I might say about it if I wasn't as worked up as I have been after like lambasting and marinating in this information for far too long recently. Oh God, I know she is no Amber Fry. Local Jan's hands. They still have his phone. They could still get warrants for the conversations on Skype and Snapchat now if they wanted to investigate NK. Well, you know, one of the things that I don't know if I'm going to have the energy to go back there right now. Let me think twice about starting that conversation. Yeah, I wonder. It is really remarkable. I mean, one thing that we can't take away from Nicole Kessinger is that she either has really good friends or no friends, or friends that she was able to somehow bribe and coerce. Because she does have that kind of like, you know, I'm going to like coercively abuse you and be your frenemy, and you're not going to know what hit you sort of personality. In clinical terms, that's what I see in her, doesn't she? Yes, thank you, guilty of crime. I know, I don't say it enough, and I sometimes am reminded. Crystal says, wasn't she given immunity for her testimony? We do not know what the actual deal is. I mean, if there is one thing I have certainly worked hard enough to find in my life, where if it were available to any like human being, no, I'm going to go with sentient being on Earth, it would be mine. We just don't know, and that's really frustrating because it just leaves us with a lot of questions that we're going to try to tackle in tomorrow night's content. Yes, not in a good way. I like I've said before, I was raised with the values that of how important our justice system is, and just, you know, the history of the people in my family and their, you know, whatever their relationship or role was in the justice system. And I just really, it was one of the few things that like my parents taught me where I was like, oh, wow, they're actually right about this one. They're not going to know that I think that until I'm a big grown up adult. But, you know, and I really just took on those values because I just was like, whoa, you know, it just is, I guess. And I think a lot of you are the same way. I have a definite sense of justice. And I think that's a good thing to have. I think it gives you direction. It gives you, you know, a sense of priorities, of things that you may want to fight for in your life, you know, put a little extra energy into, maybe even stick your neck out for a little bit, right? And in order for our justice system to work, if we want to have freedoms and rights when we need them, because there comes a time when we all need to call upon those rights or freedoms that were guaranteed to us, right? Even in small ways. If we want those to be there, we all should give a shit at least. And like in any other issue, social issue, some are going to be more passionate, have louder voices, you know, want to fight, you know, the more like the bold fight than others. But I really believe everybody has to play a part. And I think that people that are just like, yeah, I see this going on and I'm choosing not to play a part, I just kind of think those, like, I don't know. I don't ever say this about anybody, but I'm just going to kind of say it. I think those people sort of suck. I do. I think you kind of suck if you feel that way. I do. That's how I feel. Because how can you feel that way? I mean, look at what the horrible things that happened and the lives that were taken, and just, and the justice that was disturbed. Hi, Unraveled. How are you? This is a good point, and I hear this point, and I yeah, this is a point. I mean, it's a point. I feel the same. I don't think that NK had anything to do. Well, I think she had something to do with it, but this next part, her morals weren't great. Copy on that, but killing children is a huge stretch. That's totally accurate. Yeah, you certainly cannot equate, being a skanky empanada, Veronica. Empanada, don't listen, Stevie. Empanada. Having just kind of a surly, unrespectable past that your daddy surely could not be proud of is a far stretch from murdering children. I think that she was horrified too. See, that's where I don't think she was horrified. I think that her reaction is caught on almost 8 hours of some kind of recording device or manuscript for part of it, when no recording device was available, apparently. I think her reaction to the things that happened so closely to her were way out in the outer reaches of the bell curve of normal human response based on emotion and compassion for another human being. I think of all of the personalities that, intertwined their way in this horrible way that had to do with this crime. She, to me, is the most pathological. Yeah, Veronica says she was just like cussing, and I lost it. Oh, she was in the interviews, laughing, smiling, cussing like at Starbucks with friends. She was. And, some people, in that same horrific situation could react that way because it's so confusing and shocking to to everything about you to be so close to something like that. But what is remarkable and what we see about NK's behavior, and how we can, sort of, evaluate it with some degree of certainty, allegedly. I'm not doing this to a professional capacity by any means, and I could totally be wrong, is that we have so much of her reaction, and over a period of time that spans from 2 days after the family went missing or was murdered up until, let's see, almost 2.5 weeks. And her same, not normal feeling, breathing, sentient human response is consistent over all of that time. And that says something. That says something about a person. That starts to paint a picture of personality, of character, of what you're made of. That's my opinion of it. NK was way more emotional about macros than children's lives being wiped away. Seriously. Well, because every time she talked about macros or talked about getting Chris Watts on his diet plan, if you'll notice, those are times when she does not want to tell the truth about what happens. Like when she went over there on the morning of July 4th, she ended up over at his house because he had to leave because Shanann was calling, freaking out because he was in woke up in another woman's bed. Either she didn't know that, but she knew that in somewhere inside of her, and he knew that she knew, and it was just bad. It was bad for him because Shanann was going to beat him with a spoon, and she usually let her do that. So he's like, oh no, not the spoon again. But she ended up just showing up at his house because he left her house because his wife was calling and was upset. And she didn't like that. So although she'd never been to his house before and technically should not have known where he lived because They just started shacking up 5 days before that. She shows up at his front doorstep. Ooh, creepy. Signs you want to run, not walk away. There's one of them. She's like, yeah, I gave him his space. I think we had a very mutually relationship. He was very respectful. We respected one another. I gave him his space. He gave me mine. And, and I was like, oh, yeah. Yeah, I just don't like her. I don't like her. There's no secret in that, but it goes further than that. I don't normally not like people I've never met before. Right. Not the spoon again. Such a weak human being. Yeah, more pathological. Yeah. Yes, chat is always amazing. And please, everybody, leave Jim alone, for God's sake. Yeah, she had policies. That's right. And I definitely can't say what just popped into my head right there, but you can imagine. Yeah, and there's something that we're going to be discussing in tomorrow night's content that is really important about that in the timeline. Really, really important. So that explains the Starbucks cup and the trash can. Are you being funny off of what Veronica said about Starbucks, or was there something I missed there? Because I would love for that to be explained. Right. Why was she not charged for obstructing the investigation? She admitted in her own words that she did that. District Attorney Rourke said in his own special boy words that she did that. The fact that charges did not follow is not acceptable if we want a functioning justice system, not in a case of this magnitude when such horrible crimes were committed. I mean, if we're giving passes out when people if we are giving passes on somebody that murders a pregnant woman and 2 little girls, adorable little girls, his own flesh and blood, in any way, we are in trouble. We give, passes to people who are going 12 miles over the speed limit when, there really wasn't any kind of danger that they were causing anyway. Not people who do things like that. No passes. When is she writing her book? Wasn't that an idea? She liked it that Amber Fry did it and got paid a lot for it. Hey, Kristen Nelson, how are you doing? During the investigation, not only microphone is getting cantankerous. During the investigation, not only was NK's dad allowed in, which is absurd, but he referenced the investigators by first names, telling them not to lead. Does anyone else find that strange? Yeah, well, just the fact that he was ordering them around. Did you hear what I said? Holy cow. I mean, I was like, wow. That's just like, I guess you can maybe get a sense of where the entitled license to narcissistic behavior all over the place comes from in Kessinger, maybe. I don't know. I don't know enough about her dad to really speak to that, but that was weird. Oh, yeah. Shunan's family, I'm sure they want justice. I have such sorrow for that family. Me too. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Right. I would like to know that too. And it's also information that will not be known by any other human being. I feel like I would like to know the exact date and time she deleted the text messages and web history. I would like to know that too. But somebody didn't want us to know that, and he gets his way. Let's see. She wasn't under arrest. She was on her own free will. No reason she can't take someone. It wasn't a lawyer, although he was pretty on the ball with a legal aspect. I don't know. I mean, I sort of have a different thought on that. And I feel that, and maybe I was listening in like a prejudice, in a, what do we call that? A confirmation bias sort of way. But I feel when you're investigating a case like this, I mean, you know, when they first spoke with her, the bodies were not yet recovered, right? You don't have to give in to somebody's childish, princess entitled wants, desires, and, you know, demands that could any way, as District Attorney Rourke said, hamper an investigation. Correct me if I'm wrong, those who know better than I, but I believe that law enforcement conducts their interviews and interrogations the way that they do because there's tried and true evidence behind it that shows that it works. And when they know that they get to a point where it's not working anymore, they have a contingency plan. They change it up. That's why, you know, it's not everybody can have those kind of jobs and do them effectively. We know some people obviously can't. And to have your daddy in there with you, protecting you, I don't think is something that law enforcement has found to be effective when they're trying to get information about how to find a pregnant woman and two beautiful little girls who are missing off the face of the earth. I'm not trying to be like sharp in my tone with you, by the way. I just feel pretty strongly about that. Yeah, some of these things I can't talk about. Right. When you're being, you know, questioned about, you know, that kind of a horrible crime, how can anyone be allowed in the room with you? No, it's all business. I mean, my God, like once again, if we give passes out for this kind of a crime, we're screwed. I'm sorry. We're screwed. If we all agree this is the kind of crime that we just hand out passes for, we're screwed. And I'm not going to let us go down being all screwed and stuff without speaking out against it at the very least. I unfortunately can't find much more to do about it. I'm trying. They could get up and walk out anytime. Absolutely. There could have been a lawyer there. Absolutely. And that would have been appropriate. Yep. I can only remember the detective pressing her hard one time and dad nipped it in the bud real quick. Yeah. He said, you know, I agree with you that we want to, you know, move this along because more time that passes, you know, certain thing, and that's something that, again, I'm talking about in the video that's coming out tomorrow. I feel that I finally got the Cracker Jack Pox decoder to that sort of like grunting that he was doing in that interview room when he made that statement. And I want to know what you guys think. Thank you. And thank you for being here. I believe she did hire someone to wipe off her social media presence. I think that I actually know that to be true. Yeah. Because that's really freaking hard to do. Ed Hopkins. Oh, it was confirmed when she did her interview with the Denver Post. That's right. So, yeah, please hit like, guys. I'd really appreciate it. So, wow. I actually do have to run because you got to sleep sometime, right? But thank you guys so much for being here. And remember tomorrow, okay, realistically, it'll probably be 8:30. There's going to be a live stream. It's going to be an introduction to, it's just going to roll like right into a premiere. So I hope you guys can join me for that. And I really just want to hear what you guys think, because that's, I think, I really do feel that we have gone places in, you know, our kind of like vigilantes, web sleuth, junior detective search for justice in this case. I really truly believe that. I mean, have you guys seen like measurable evidence of that? I have. But it's only by doing it together can we get anywhere, because there is nobody who has all the answers to these questions. But I think the amazing thing is enough people care about the justice that was not served here and are willing to be a little uncomfortable and lose a little sleep over it. And I think that's like a really great thing. And of course, we care very much about the victim's family too. All of them, all of them. So many people have suffered due to this tragedy. Hi, Sabrosa. Listen, guys, I got to turn my air conditioner back on because my air conditioner is like, it sounds like every time I turn it on, I'm like, turn on the jet engines. It's really freaking loud right now. It just like decided it was going to like, you know, put in its order for its last meal. So I have to turn it off altogether when I'm recording. And I'm really hot right now. So I will see you guys tomorrow night. And thank you so much for being here. Thank you, moderators, subscribers, members, people who are new, just stopping in, all of you lurkers. Anaphylaxis, come down with our Anna. Hi, Karen. How are you? Oh, welcome. So glad that you're here. Hey, Riff Raff, how are you doing? And I can't play an outro, I don't think. Oh, I can play it like an NK one because YouTube changed their music policies again. So there go all the license I purchased and made tracks too that I thought captured this energy of the crime. Thank you, YouTube, for your undying support. I think this is it. All right, I'll see you guys tomorrow night. Love you guys. Oh, and life is hard. If you can't tell, life is like a little hard for me today. I'm in a super mood. So be nice to each other. Don't be mean to people who are all cranky like me. Or worse, really, though. And be nice to yourselves because you deserve it. I know you do because you're awesome.
I guess just call me back when you have a chance. Bye. Hi. It's me. I miss your face. I was just calling to say hi. Call me back.
Thank you so much for coming out here with me, Christopher. I am having a wonderful time. You mean a lot to me, and I'm glad that you're having a blast. I am so out of breath.
Yeah, I'm trying. I'm really trying to help you guys. I need you guys to help me too. Like,
yes,
we'll
ma'am.
do this as a team, but just don't.
So
fucking let me down,
the
please.
reason why we can't, like, I did think about this yesterday, that I would like to sit down with you once we have your text messages and the phone calls, and we can put them in a some type of easily looking, that we can sit down and look at them and compare them, and we can kind of get the context of how everything was going that night. I would like to do that with you. Unfortunately, so the download that we got yesterday is going to take multiple days to be analyzed. I probably won't have it back till next week. And then because you guys did have so many text messages, one of my analysts is working on getting those in order, so we can put something together where we can actually sit down and discuss it. But I do think that's something that I want to do in the near future, sometime probably next week.
I mean, I can do that. I don't mind giving you guys my time. I just need you guys to like help me with my employer and try to just help me brace
Located
for
in the
this
front
media
passenger
thing.
side panel was a green disposable cigarette lighter.
I'm with you. We definitely need to accelerate the case, because the more it takes, the less sure that they are of situations.
He murdered her. She's out of the picture. You're never going to know if she was pregnant. If he can get away with murder, you're not going to. I got divorced from my wife. You say, do you understand what I'm saying here? If she's gone,
But this.
Don't lead.
Hypothetically.
Please.
Yeah.
Don't lead
Hypothetically.
on.
If she, you understand where I'm going. If
Right,
you
but
didn't know.
You're leading into questions that are nothing with your.
If you didn't know, though.
Wait, Nick.
That she was there.
Did you hear what I said?
I'm following you.
Stop asking about it. She didn't have anything to do with it. She wasn't there that morning. She voluntarily cooperated with law enforcement. She provided us all the information. I'm not going to tell you where she's at. Stop. Leave me alone.
Oops. In closing, I would like to say, District Attorney Work, that little statement that you made right there that just sounds like a young child having a temper tantrum, stop it, leave me alone, is going to follow you around for the rest of your career and probably the rest of your life. So congratulations. Good for you. See you guys tomorrow.